There's a new beta version of Brizy Cloud, the online platform where you can use the Brizy Page Builder in an online cloud-based environment without the reliance upon WordPress. Now this beta version has one key feature and one that I'm pretty happy to see being included. What is it? Custom fields. Now before you get your hopes up for a fully fledged version of Advanced Custom Fields Pro combined with Custom Post Type UI, you may need to temper your expectations, at least for right now. But while we won't be getting all those features, it is a pretty solid introduction to adding more custom functionality to what is already a great platform for those that don't want to rely on WordPress but love having the flexibility of a page builder like Brizy. Okay, now I've got you up to speed with what's available in this beta release, let's open up a copy of Brizy Cloud Beta and take a look at how to get started on a new project ready to add in some custom field goodness. So first thing we need to do is create a new project, and this works in exactly the same way as we've seen before. We can choose between websites and landing pages, pop-ups and alerts, so let's just hit create website and landing page, and there's our new project. We can name this if we want to, and we'll just say this is, for example, ACF, and now we can edit this project. Now that we have a blank project created, the next thing to look at is how we go about adding in these new custom fields. So once you log in and you open up your new project, you'll see this is where we start off with, and exactly the same as we've already seen many times in the past. However, we have a new option in the top corner. We click to expand that out. This will show us then all of the assets, and this is kind of the clusters of different types of content, as well as the pages, webhooks, things like that, and also the feature which is create custom asset, which is basically creating custom fields. So if we take a quick look, first of all, we've got our pages, categories and blogs, and our pop-ups and alerts. So these are as standard. When we create new assets, and these can be things like, for example, it's not named this, but basically custom post types, they will then show up inside the assets section. So let's start off by doing that. Let's create a custom asset. This will take you over into this interface, and we can do a couple of things. And like I say, if you're used to working with tools like custom post types, this is going to feel very familiar, even if it is a more stripped back version with some slight variations in the terminology being used. But basically what we do is we give the asset, or post type in this example, a name. So we'll just call this property. Let's actually set that to property for singular. Then we'll put properties for the plural. Asset slug, well, it's up to you. You can just add this if you want to, but I'm going to put in properties. And then we've got the drop down select. How is this going to be handled? Is it a single editor? In other words, is it for a single post kind of editor in what we'd expect with WordPress posts? Your page editor, which as his name would suggest is a page, pop-up editor or archive editor. Now for this example, we only really need to look at the single editor and the archive editor. The single is where you create your single post content, for example, your property, and the archive editor is where we can edit the actual archive where we group those different things together. So we'll take a look at that in a little moment. So once we've done this, we're going to set this to single editor. We'll find a picture that looks kind of in keeping with what we want. We'll just go for this one, doesn't really matter too much. And once we've done that, we now can go ahead and start to define the asset fields. So in this example, they're kind of like your meta fields in more WordPress orientated terminology. So we can click to add, and we can choose between a range of different field types. So text, rich text, and so on. So text through to number all operate in the same way you'd expect with a normal, typical, basic meta field. Reference and multi-reference are more to do with things like your taxonomies, so things like tags, things like that. We'll take a look at that in a moment once we've kind of created a few things. So let's just say we want to add in a couple of extra fields. Now the title is kind of already created as default, but unlike WordPress where you deal with custom post types and so on, it's only the text or the title of the custom post which should be automatically created. No content, featured image and so on. We have no way of enabling and disabling those. So we have to set those up manually by choosing the relevant field types at this point, or the asset fields. So let's just say we've got the title, we know that's going to be there. Next thing we want to do is put the description in, and this just drops in this field. Now we can edit this very easily just by clicking on the name of it, and we can delete it, or we can edit various different parameters. So we're just going to put this and set this to be property description. And you can put in the description, you can make it required, placeholder, minimum, maximum characters, those kinds of things. So great if you wanted to limit the characters you wanted to use for a brief overview of a particular property that you wanted to use then as a sort of an asset in the design you want to work with. But we'll add that in there, and we'll just do two other fields. So we're going to say we're going to add an image in, and this is going to be our property featured image. So again, we'll we'll just change that to featured image, and we'll do one more, which is going to be the price. So we'll just add in, for this example, we'll add text in because we want to just add in the currency figure and so on, because currently there's no way of setting information before or after, prepend in suffixes and all those kinds of things with the data you want to pull in. So for this example, it makes more sense for us to set this as text, and we'll change this then to property price. And just add that in there. So we have to bear in mind that this is still a beta version. So there's going to still be bugs, quirks, strange things may happen, features that may not exist in here just yet, but it's a great starting point, and that's the most important thing. So let's create this and continue. Once we do that, we now have properties, our new post type or asset, and that's now listed inside here. So we can add a new property if we want to. So we click, go in there, you can see there's our property title, which is built by default. Property description, featured image, property price, and the permalink if you want to change that. That will automatically generate if you don't want to. So that's how we create the basics. Now, even though Brizy Cloud isn't necessarily using WordPress or WordPress terminology, the principles of taxonomies is still relevant here. It's still being used as a way to provide grouping functions, either as a single taxonomy, like a brand or a property type, as well as more global options that can be applied in multiple instances, very much like how tags work in WordPress. Now let's take a look at how we can apply those principles to our newly created custom properties post type. Create a custom asset. What we're going to do this time is we're going to give this the option for the different property types. So the asset name is going to be property type, as in singular. We'll copy that from there and we'll drop that in there, and we'll just property types, asset slug. So we're going to do property type again, but we'll put an underscore inside there so we don't have any spaces. And this is where you can choose between the different types of editor selects you want. So we're going to say that we want this to be an archive editor. So we're going to click on that option. Now by choosing archive, it means that we can basically use this as a sort of taxonomy. So we can group items together. So a property type, so things like apartments, flats, houses, those kinds of things. So now we can go ahead and add in any asset fields we want, but you don't need to, because again, this will automatically create just the title for it. So for this example, I don't need any more information. We're just going to use this to group our properties. So I'm going to say create and continue, and that's created. And again, you can see we have a new entry now on the left-hand side, property types. We can click on the cog if we want to, and we can edit anything inside here. So if we forgot to put something like the icon we want to use, well, we'll just choose this option. We'll save and finish. That will update things, and we might have to refresh our browser to sort of show this on the left-hand side, but not too worried about that. Okay, so now we've created that sort of taxonomy. How do we link the two things together? If we hop back into properties and we'll just select the cog icon on there, you can see what we can do now is we can add a new field in again. So we can keep adding to this if we find we want to change something. So we'll click and add that, and this is where the reference and the multi-reference options come into play. So for this example, a property is generally only ever going to have one property type. You can't have a house and a flat. Do you know what I mean? So it kind of makes sense. So what we're going to do is we're going to set this to be a reference so it can have just one relationship. If you needed more, you could use multi-reference. So you might want to group these into other sort of common groupings together. You could use that. For this example, though, we're going to hit reference on there. And then you can see that opens this up and says choose an option. And this just allows us to link the two things together. So we expand this arrow out, click on the little option there. We're going to change the reference, and we're going to call this property type, so it'll make a little bit more sense. And then we're going to just change the reference. In other words, where are we going to grab this data from? Open that up, and we scroll down, and you can see property types is now listed inside there. We can select that, save and finish, and that side of things is done. So now if we go back and take a look at our properties, and we add a new property in, you'll find we have a new option at the bottom called property type, and expand that. There's nothing in it at the moment because we haven't pre-filled anything out. But we've now created that link that allows us to group things together. Now before we tackle outputting the data from our custom fields, let's briefly see how we go about adding some sample content to our new custom fields. Let's go ahead and just add in our first property. So we're just going to call this London Heights. We'll simply pop in some filler content inside there. We'll add an image, and what I'm going to do is just quickly upload an image. We'll select this one, and we'll just open that up. So there, that upload, there we go. We'll put our price in, and because this is a text field, we can easily drop in any kind of values we want. So we're going to say this one is 500,000. Property type. Now we've set nothing up inside this, so I'll come back and show you how you can add that in a moment. You'll see the permalink is automatically generated. And then we've got the option to save this as a draft by default, or we can change this and set it to be published. Now, this is one of those areas that I would like to see change because I think this is slightly counterintuitive. We've got to update the status and we have to hit save. Now, for me, I would much rather see the option for save, which is there, or cancel. But once you change this status to publish, for example, this then automatically saves it through Ajax or whatever method. So we don't have to hit publish and then go and hit save. And the same goes if we change this back into draft status, it will automatically update the status without the need to hit save. To me, that would be a little bit more intuitive. But we'll set that to be published and we'll hit save. So that's how easy it is to add a new property. And you can see, there it is, all done the way we'd expect it to be, really easy. Want to add SEO options inside here? Well, you can jump over to the SEO tab and you can add that in. And you see there's the preview link and everything else to go with it. So already easy, pretty straightforward. Now let's hop over into the property types though, and let's set up a couple of property types. So we'll hop in and you can see this works in exactly the same way as the properties. We'll add a new property type and we're just going to say this is going to be apartment. You can see permalink is automatically created, and this is what I'm talking about, the draft status. So each time you want to add something, you've got to hit published and hit save. I just rather see that being done a little bit more straightforward way. Again, though, we have the SEO options at the top. We can click and we'll add some more. And you can see this comes in and we've got the link there so we can see those, all the different kinds of things you'd expect with Brizy. Add another one in, and this time we're just going to call this house, and we'll just set this to be published and save it. Okay, so we've got a couple of different property types. Let's hop back into our properties. Let's open up the London Heights, and we're going to come down and expand that. You can see there are our new options. So this time we're going to set that to apartment. We'll hit update. We've now created our first property. We set up some property types, linked everything together, and that's how easy it is to start working inside this side of things. Now, Brizy makes it relatively easy to output a list of posts. We'll be using that specific widget to add our new properties to the homepage of our demo website. We're going to use the homepage of the example where we'll list our properties. To do that, we're going to simply come to the pages section and we're going to edit our homepage. Now, our homepage is currently blank. So what we can do now is we can just pull in the various different things that we want. So we're going to add and create a new section of our own. So we'll just choose create that. Open up the options on the left-hand side, and what we're going to do is we're going to look for the posts widget. Drag and drop that into our editor area, and after a couple of seconds that might load in, or it'll just kind of go blank. And this is one of those areas, again, which is a little confusing because it now looks like that particular widget has disappeared, which it hasn't. It's just because we have no normal post content inside here for like blog posts and so on. We're using custom meta field data and a custom post type. So we need to change that. So what we can do is we can come over and we can come to the reorder blocks, for example, and you can see there's our block, it is there, and if we click, you can see that it is there, it's just a little bit hidden. So we can click in the top right hand corner and that allows us to access the actual widget itself. So let's click and open up the posts, and let's go into choose the option for filter. And this is where we can choose the source. So we're going to change this from blog, which is what it thinks it is, which is the default. And we're going to come down and we're going to just choose properties. But you can see property types is also inside here as well. So you could list out all of your property types in the same way you can do with your properties. Lots of options, even with the basic starting point. Hit properties on there, give that a second or two to load in. And currently this is a little bit on the slow side. And you can see now that pulls in at least some basic information. In this example, it's only pulling in the title because that's one of the default built-in fields. It's not a custom field that we've just created, which is why you're seeing London Heights and you're not seeing any featured image, text, or anything else to go with it. But to rectify that is always easy when it comes to Brizy. We're going to just select the image, and now you can come in, choose the image option. You can click on the little dynamic icon, and we can just click on there and we can choose featured image and give it a second or two, and that then should just update. And there we go. So this is pulling in the featured image for the custom post type we've created, which is properties. Simple as that. If you want to change the text inside here, you can click and do the same kind of thing again. So you can click on the type option. You can set all your type, your fonts, all those kinds of things. You can adjust your alignments, edit all the spacing, all those kinds of things. Or you can just get rid of that and put whatever data you want in. So let's get rid of it. And let's come back over and add in a new field, and we're just going to add in a basic text field. We'll drop that underneath there. And now we've got more options available to us. Now what we need to do is change the source on there. So we can do that by clicking on the text or the T typography icon, and you can see we've got the little dynamic tag again. Now this is a little bit confusing, and hopefully they'll actually change this to make it a little bit more intuitive as it moves through the beta stages. But if we click on there, we can choose where we want to grab our actual text from. And for this example, we want property price. So we're going to select that option. Again, give it a second or two, and that will pull in the details. And now we can style it, align it, do whatever we kind of want with it. So we can make it darker, we can adjust any of those kinds of things, drop shadows, all those kinds of normal things you'd expect. So that's how easy that side of things is, and you can come in and you can style the box that you're working with. So we can say we want to put a shadow on there, we'll adjust that a little bit, there we go, and that's how easy it is to start pulling in that dynamic data. Now when you save your draft and save this and use it as your home page, as you add more properties, they'll be added inside this listing in the way you would expect. And if you want to change the listing itself, the number of columns, you can do all that really easily. Just go to the widget, open this option up, adjust your columns, your rows, your spacing. The filter that's going to be used, navigation, whether you want to add pagination in, all those kinds of things. So really easy to do that and really easy to start integrating everything in. Now we have a listing of our properties, we need to have a way of displaying the individual property details along with all of the custom fields. Now under our property section, there's our London Heights, the property we just created. So we're going to come in and edit this. So say, yeah, we'll add that. We'll come in and edit it. So now we can create the layout for this. Now, at the moment, from my understanding, you can't create a template that applies by default to all of your properties. I could be wrong on that, and if I am wrong, please do let me know. But what you can do, or what you will be able to do, is create the basic layout, pull in the relevant dynamic data, and then you could save that as a template and apply that to each individual property you add in, and it will pull in the dynamic data. So an extra step maybe at this point in time, but like I say, this is still a beta version. So I'm sure that as with most things Brizy, they will smooth this entire process out to make it really intuitive. So let's just take a look at how we can do that. Let's just create our own. First thing we're going to do is just add in the image. So we'll come over to our blocks, we'll add an image inside there, drag and drop that up there. And like we've done before, we simply select it, hit the icon and just choose the dynamic source, which is going to be featured image in this example. Give it a second, that will then load that in. And there we go, that's now loaded in. So we can repeat the process. However, this time we've got some extra options. We've got title. So we can drag that in and that will pre-fill in the title, which in this case is going to be the London Heights. Come back in again, we're going to add in a text item, drop that inside there, we'll select it, click on the T, click on the dynamic tags, and this is going to be the property type. And again, this is one of those nice things, even though this is being pulled in dynamically from another sort of custom post type that we've created, or taxonomy in this example, it's available to us inside here, so we can reference that, give it a second, and you see this will pull in saying it's an apartment, which is correct in this example. And then what we can do is we can do the same thing again. So we'll add another text item inside there. We'll drop that underneath. We'll select it and go into our dynamic source and we'll set this to be the property price. There we go. Give it a couple of seconds to install that. Here we go. And finally, we're just going to add in the option right at the bottom. Drag our text in inside there. Click on it. All the same routine. And this time we're going to set this to be the property description. And that, once that fills out, is going to be all the styling we need to build out this particular kind of post. Now, like I say, what you can do now is you can come up to the top, you can hit the option to save, but unfortunately, because this is the beta, I'm not logged in, I can't actually use that function. It'll just ask me to log in. But when this is out of beta and everything is fine-tuned, you will have the option to save any of the template files that you create. So we'll update that page. And we can take a look at it if we want to, if it'll work on here, because like I say, this is the beta and it's not necessarily playing ball with me every single time, but we can take a look, and there we go. So London Heights, apartment, £500,000, and all the description and everything. And if also you had a template for the header and footer and those kinds of things, that would all be listed inside there as well. I'm happy that Brizy Cloud is adding the ability to create and add custom data. This opens up a lot of possibilities, and I love how Brizy seamlessly integrates dynamic data into the interface. It's generally intuitive and easy to use, and is a good indication of how the final version will look and feel. Now, there are definitely a couple of areas that I feel could be improved. The swapping from draft to published, along with having to save, becomes old really quickly. I'd also like to see it being made a little more obvious how to create dedicated templates to use with the archive listings, as well as a global template to handle individual custom post pages. Now, I think this would help clear up exactly how to set up a very flexible way of working. But this might just be a limitation in my particular understanding of these features, and I'll be happy to be updated if I'm approaching things in the wrong fashion. Now, if you'd like to try the beta out for yourself, the link is in the description below, and if you've made it this far in the video, well, why not give that thumbs up button a click? It really does help me out. While you're at it, if you liked and enjoyed the content, why not also click the subscribe button and slap the bell icon? But If you didn't get value from the video, well, feel free to hit the thumbs down button twice, as that works pretty well too. My name is Paul C, this is WPTuts, and until next time, take care.